If you're a fan of Berserk, you probably know about the big three adaptations. 97, the Golden Age trilogy films, and the 2016-2017. These are the three major pillars that put together the adaptation world of Berserk. But what if I told you that there were three others that you may or may not have heard of? That's right, the other format and medium that people love so much is video games. And Berserk has had the privilege to have its own adaptations in the form of video games. 3 as well. The first one, released in 1999, was called Sword of the Berserk Guts' Rage in the English translation. Also in Japanese, it translated to Berserk Millennium Falcon Arc Chapter of the Flowers of Oblivion. And it actually follows a very original story of Guts between the moment when he leaves to go to Elfhelm and also before Farnes and the rest catch up to him. It was released for the Sega Dreamcast and published by Eidos Montreal, and it was developed by Yuke's. Now, the most recent Berserk video game adaptation is probably a bit more well known. It was released in 2016, and it was called Berserk and the Band of the Hawk. It was a Dynasty Warriors-like game which followed Guts during his time of the Band of the Hawk, and later chapters with extra DLC, fighting through waves of enemies. And it was actually developed by the people who developed Dynasty Warriors and a bunch of other anime games. But the one we're going to be talking about is the one in the middle, and it garners so much praise, and I'd say some of it is well deserved. Developed by Yuke's as well. After finishing Sword of Berserk Guts' Rage, Yuke's, the developer, went on to go and make another Berserk game, and it is called Berserk Millennium Falcon Hensaimer Senki no Sho, or in English, Berserk Millennium Empire Arc Chapter of the Holy Demon War. Not really the most condensed title, you know, not the most condensed title of all time, but hey, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do to market. Essentially, people call it in small terms just Berserk PS2, and it takes place the time just after leaving for Elfhelm and right before arriving at Vrachanis. A very small window of a video game, but one that actually covers a wide spread. And recently I had the desire to try and play it. I heard and watched a lot of videos of people on YouTube talk about it, and always talk about how this game always captured the feeling of being Guts. But I really wanted to see if that was true. So if you didn't know, I stream a lot of times on this channel. And for the streams, when we first started doing quite a few, after every single stream near the end, I would say time to play a couple hours of Berserk. Try and get through the story. Essentially to encapsulate everything that I experienced through it and see if maybe you are interested in getting it yourself. Berserk Millennium Falcon PS2 game was released in 2004 for the PlayStation 2. Now, it was only released in 2 countries. It was released in Japanese and South Korea. It did not get an English translation at all because I assume the Sega Sword of Berserk didn't do as well as they had hoped, so they decided to not publish it much further into the world. But as you know, the Berserk fanbase is very ravenous, and when they find something that's new, I'm sure everyone wants to consume it at some point. The only way to get the Berserk PS2 game nowadays is to either go online and buy a region-coded Japanese PS2 game so you can play the Japanese encoded PS2 game, or you could get certain things translated. Because if you were to even do that with the PS2, it's not translated for English at all. There is no English translation. But if you happen to have an emulator and you happen to have the game and a PS2, you could get it. Could. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying you could, hypothetically. So I hypothetically did that and was able to run an emulator to play it. And it had an English translation mod, so everything was in English, at least loosely translated. Not everything was perfect. Like, they probably used Google Translate, but regardless, you understood. If you had read the manga, if you've watched some of the shows, you knew what was taking place in terms of the story, so you don't have to have it be perfect. Now, when you boot it up, you're very much really hyped up with, of course, you know those PS2 anime game intros we have with like Dragon Ball Z and all that sort of stuff? Berserk has one of those, and I gotta say, it hits hard. You hit in with Sign, with Susumu Hirasawa coming back, playing some new music. He composed the music for this game just like he did for Sword of the Berserk, so you know it's top-notch quality. And it's always great to hear these bangers, especially when you're playing. So when you boot up the game, you can choose, of course, difficulty, all that sort of stuff. And when you start, you're given the tutorial with Puck, teaching you the dimension style. This takes place, like I said before, just after Guts decides he's going to take Casca to Elfhelm. So they start in the snow. And in the snow, we start to fight our first round of demons, which are these like abominable snowmen, which is like, you know, they were never in the manga, these demons. So it's really cool to fight new designs, right? So after a brief tutorial, you learn your basics. Square is to literally slash everything. What's great in the way you can move the Dragon Slayer is that you can swing in any direction and Guts will automatically move in a way that feels natural to the other direction so that you don't feel like you have to be facing one way to slash. If you are facing and slashing one way and you decide to twist the other way and press square, Guts will organically move the other way and swing. And it does feel like if you know what animations trigger what, you can really get a wide range of slashes, especially if you're being surrounded. What's great about the game is it really does emphasize the idea that you are being hunted. Enemies, when you're out in the open world, will keep spawning. There is a percentage where you could clear every area and there won't ever be enemies ever again. But if you don't want to spend the whole time grinding, you're going to be attacked and hassled non-stop. And that's kind of the fun of it, is to try and dodge and get your way through areas and fight when you know you have to. Circle is a simple dash. You can do up to 3 dashes before Guts has to rest and the animation has to reset. Triangle is your heavies. You can just spam heavies and he'll do a massive barrage of these huge swings that he's unstoppable in, or you can hold down and do one big one. Most enemies actually are one-hit enemies, and it feels satisfying to slash them, and in whatever way the Dragon Slayer hits them, it actually cuts them in that direction. Some enemies will be a 3-hit, 4-hit, 5-hit enemy, and that's where you have this ability where you see the brand of sacrifice in your health pool. Your health pool is just this red blood, and when you use the brand of sacrifice, you actually trigger an animation, and the animation is an auto kill. It auto kills any enemy, and it takes a bunch of health from a boss, so you want to be able to stack up attacks so that you can get that animation and deal massive damage. Those are pretty much the basics, and of course X is to guard, and guard, you know, it helps, but when you know a big attack's coming, it rarely does anything. You're much off better to dodge or try and find a way to just maneuver around. Now you got your mechanics. You can use the arm cannon. The arm cannon has a slow recharge rate, but it insta-kills everything in its path. So satisfying to use. The screen shakes. It almost feels like the PC or the emulator can't keep up with the delay, so it feels like it has this real force to it. You can tell the people who developed this really wanted to make sure it felt like it was in the manga. When it's actually being used, it pushes back, and Guts actually goes flying. It's satisfying as well to watch your animations because most of it was used motion capture. They all had actors to perform all these things, so it feels very fluid and original, but it doesn't get in the way of moving quickly and moving like a video game should be fun in how it feels, right? The arrow bolts was something I hated early on, but then I realized that you could run and shoot, so when I learned that you could do that, I liked them a bit more. The bombs are great. Again, they kind of insta-kill, but you can't use them too much, and you know, you have to be very specific in the direction you throw, otherwise it's gonna hit no one. And the last one are the throwing knives. The throwing knives are probably, for being honest, the most useless mechanic. It is honestly, if for anything, is just to cancel animations for. I would just be running and I would dash 3 times and I would throw a knife just so that I didn't have to rest and cancel that animation so I could dash 3 more times again. And they recharge the fastest because they're the most useless. They're mostly used to stun lock enemies so you can run past them. That's it. It's honestly not that much of a good mechanic to honestly like genuinely get a lot of use out of. R1 is lock on, so you can use that of course to lock on when you do want to throw stuff. They are very specific about when something does hit and when it doesn't, and it has to be in real time. It doesn't just auto attack. So those are the basics, and when you progress through the story, you get your companions. You've already start with Puck, who is your healer. He heals and it takes time for him to recharge. And then when you get the others, you get Isidro, you get Shurikei, and you get Serpico. Serpico slows down time, which I guess makes sense for wind, kinda, I guess. I don't know. I guess he's quick. Isidro is just a huge fire explosion, so if you're being crowded around by all these swarms of enemies, you don't really have a way out, you don't have the cannon, you use Isidro, fire will just ignite all of them. And then you have Shurikei, which gives you a magical defense. So your defense is up, you take less damage, and you are less sensitive to magical damage, which is really high. It's awesome. The enemies are a good variety. It feels like, you know what stage you're in, depending in the story, on the enemies you're fighting. You know, when you're fighting undead soldiers, the trolls, the snowmen, definitely on the environment, definitely on the enemies you fight. And there's a good variety of enemies. It's pretty hype. It's really cool. Now, let's get into the story, how the story presents itself, because as I was streaming this, everyone kept making the same joke, is like, you're in a cutscene and you're like, whoa, man, what is this? It looks better than Berserk 2016, to which, yeah, it does. It does, actually. There are times in the cutscenes are really well done. You know it's this specific moment from the manga where, oh man, dude, this is exactly the scene that happens in the manga. And they have tried to replicate the shot exactly. My favorite one that they tried to replicate, and I think nailed it, was when Farnese cuts her hair. the transition, I can already picture in my head, I can see like the panel and then it just cut to the game and it's like, oh, it's a moving picture. It's exactly how I imagined it when I was reading it, which was really cool to see those scenes be replicated in reality. It feels like, yay, this is the best, newest adaptation I've ever seen. And in 3D, and it looks good. There are some changes to the story, of course. Some things are cut, as they usually are. There are certain things that I know should definitely have been cut. The scenes with the trolls and the women are not there at all. I was very worried I would have to turn off my stream halfway through that, but that didn't happen, so that was pretty good. The trolls, though, you know, very much replicated well, terrifying. A lot of the enemies do feel like in swarms. They're like, oh man, that's a lot of enemies. Am I going to be able to get out of this? And then you do really feel, especially when you up the difficulty, that Guts is a one-man army on his own. He doesn't have like help. Like, you got the companions, but you're on your own. It's kind of like that's all you got. And it's something that it does feel extremely faithful to the source material. And even though it does cut some things, they add things that make up for it, and then I kind of innovate on it, which I'll get to in a sec. But in terms of the story, when we begin, we're getting through the snow. We get a flashback cutscene which takes us to Zod, our first boss fight. It's a good one where fighting Zod, we're learning kind of again of Guts' relationship to Griffith. What's cool about this game is that if you haven't read Berserk or seen any of the adaptations, the game kind of tries to make sure that you as the viewer know what's happening, even though you haven't read or watched any of it. They try to kind of hide what happened to Guts. They show the brand does something, they show the brand attracts demons, but not until like later in the game, like near the end, they reveal who Griffith was and what he did and why Guts is such an angry, vengeful man, which I think is a cool little thing and a nods to the people who want to introduce new people to the series. But in the scene on the Sword of the Hills, you fight Zod, and what's cool when you use those animations, it replicates scenes from the manga. It's so cool when they do that, and it's cool to parry. Parrying is something that is really exciting in showing those quick time events where it can really give you the opportunity to deal a lot of damage by risking getting attacked and parrying it, or get absolutely fucking destroyed by Zod stomping on you, man. It was so bad. It was so bad. I was so dying. It's not the hardest game, but it is an unforgiving one. They don't want you to feel like you have a moment to rest. So in the areas you progress, which are these, you know, mini-map sectioned areas based in chapters, in these areas they give you like these little essential bonfire things. But in these rest areas, you can actually save your game, look at the world, look at the encyclopedia, all that sort of stuff. But I noticed you can level up, and that's how they get you to, I guess, grind the XP. And the XP works differently to what most other games would do. The XP stats are simple. Give Guts more vitality, give him a better recharge rate on his abilities, give him a better attack, stuff like that. And then you can also upgrade your companions. Give Isidro more attack, his animation looks cooler, Serpico freeze time longer, etc. Puck heals you better. These are the things that they want you to upgrade. And to get XP, it's not actually killing a bunch of enemies. There are a bunch of different things that can give you XP. You can find these little token gremlin things which look like schnoz throughout the world, and they give you a shit ton of XP in new areas. That's something to look out for. So it encourages you to explore. But another thing is fighting a lot of enemies while chaining together kills. You get a very small amount of XP when you kill one enemy. But if you kill 20 enemies, 50 enemies in a row in a hit counter and kill each of them successfully and keep hitting stuff and make sure that you keep up that tempo, they reward you with a lot of XP because it feels like, yeah, I'm swinging. I am the Black Swordsman. I will not stop because it's nighttime. I must keep fighting. It does feel good when you're on a roll. You'll keep fighting, you'll keep swinging, you'll absolutely just feel, oh, I'm so tired, but I need to get that XP. It does put you in the situation of being like Guts. Now, that is very immersive, but at the same time, I do think it's one of my big criticisms of the game so far, is that it is extremely grindy. If you want these special weapons to get for Puck and for you later in the game, especially when you do other stuff that the game opens up when you finish the game, is you have to clear the areas. Every area starts with 100% demon value, and when you kill a bunch of demons, the value drops. There are these little sectioned battles that you can do that do give you a lot of XP, and there are certain amounts throughout the map you just have to run and find them. And then when you found them all, you have 30% left of demons to kill. And let me tell you, that 30% could take you maybe an hour, half an hour minimum killing demons. Just in one spot, random spot in the area, just killing demons for half an hour to clear the map. And when you've cleared the map, you can run around it freely without being attacked, which is cool, but it kind of makes the world feel empty. And that's kind of not thing I love, but I do feel like there is a reward to going so far and being dedicated to kill all these enemies, but at the same time, it feels extremely grindy. And if you're someone who wants to like enjoy the story, you could definitely beeline it, but you would sacrifice not getting XP so that you could fight bosses easier instead of cluttering your way through it and just getting lucky. Feels good to go through a fight and not getting a single hit on you because you know that, oh, this is as good as I'll ever be like Guts. But again, the grinding is extremely a lot. And you may think, well, I'm an MMO player, I don't care about that. As someone who plays an MMO, you know, on the semi-regularly, like, you know, I'm a filthy casual, this was so grindy. Like, I've never had to grind this much in like an action or an RPG or anything in quite a while. But, you know, other than that, feeling the difference when you upgrade something is really nice, especially when you get more vitality, better defense, being able to swing the Dragon Slayer even faster than before. You're like, oh, damn, that was cool. Now, I've talked a lot about the game mechanics and a little bit of the story, but one thing I do have to note in the game mechanics that I think does make it feel like there is a difference between being really slow and really fast is Berserk mode. Press down on the trigger and you go into Berserk mode where every swing is extremely fast, you chain them together, it feels insane, every single attack feels like it has 3 attacks layered into it. Your whole POV of the game goes red, similar to how he would, of course, when he goes full Berserk mode, right? And that's what it feels like, and it feels great. And you can use it tactically. When you've stunned an enemy, you've stunned the boss, you know, okay, I need to hit the cannon and I need to go Berserk mode and I could kill him in a faster time than I did before. And it's, you know, it's good. It's a good thing to have that allows you to really choose your moments. Like, do I use the cannon now? Do I use the bomb now? Do I go Berserk mode now and then later? And then should I hold this animation till I'm done? There are so many things you could do in how you play. Don't play like Guts, play like you, and it'll feel like your version of Guts. The story doesn't divert too much from the source material. Of course, they cut out a lot, there's so much to cover, but the iconic scenes are there. Guts meeting Farnese and Serpico again when they decide to join the party, Isidro catching up, meeting Shirke, helping the village with the troll problem, meeting Flora. There's a bunch of stuff that you see that was in the manga, and some of it's just those classic RPG text-based ones, and some of the full CGI dialogue moments, especially near the end, are some of the coolest scenes. Scenes in Clipoth are awesome. You fight Slann, and there are cutscenes with the animations that resemble the manga, which is awesome. Fighting a boss that intense. There are sometimes it's very much like, I guess, God of War-esque, where it's like, I just fought a boss and now I'm going to fight another boss and another boss, and the bosses just keep getting stacked. The later in the game, the bosses just get insane. They get so damn stacked, it's ridiculous. But the things that they add that are different to the story, I think are actually really amazing. There is a lot that, of course, they cut for time, but they add because it feels almost like this is for the fans and for newcomers. At one point when you're still you and Casca and Puck, you're in the snow still, and you find a mansion, and you hide in the mansion to keep yourself safe from the blizzard. And it's during the day, and at one point Casca and Puck are wandering off in the mansion, you have to go find them. You find an empty room, and in this room, you hear a voice. You feel that there's something in here, and of course the brand starts to bleed. And the windows become open. You see Judo, you see Caucus, you see Pippin. It honestly is a cool little subplot where it integrates a lot of Guts' trauma into the main story so that newcomers know, and also veterans of the manga and the story can see a different side to Guts' psyche. Essentially what this mansion showed is that there's this child apostle called Charles who hated that someone entered his mansion and decides to stalk Guts like a golem creature throughout the rest of the game and follow him on his journey. We find him again later when fighting the trolls in Clipoth. We learn that he was a child and his family were destroyed by mercenaries, by warfare. And to protect his sister who was going to be killed, he took the invocation of doom with the God Hand. and unknowingly sacrificed his sister for his power. With his power, he is able to show the deep darkness inside one's mind, the things they regret, the things they're terrified of. It even works on himself. So when he sees Guts and he tries to fight him and fool him, he creates illusions of the Band of the Hawk who are now deceased. And we fight them many times. We fight them a total of 3 times. In the last 2 times, we fight the Band of the Hawk, but this time Casca's there. But it's not the Casca we know and have now, it's the Casca we used to know, the Casca before she lost her mind. And it's kind of somber because you have to fight these demons of your past to try and move on. And it's cool to see Guts shown that way. And Guts is starting to learn more about this Charles character because he's always shown with him and his sister, but his sister is always in the shadows. And that's where you realize that, of course, Charles sacrificed his sister, but he is creating his own illusion of his sister to forget that he was the one who killed her and not the people he blames. It's really cool. It's a really cool sub-story. And I was almost saying the whole time throughout the streams, this would have been a cool story to have in the manga. Like, it doesn't fit perfectly because the mansion thing comes out of nowhere and no one else interacts with Charles, just Guts, obviously, because that doesn't happen. But when it does, you're like, damn, this is great trauma. This is all taking place inside Guts' head, fighting these illusions, these people, the Band of the Hawk, who are all gone and lost. But it's him coming to terms with them, and that's what's really cool about it, is him slowly accepting their deaths, just understanding that this is how it is and you have to move on and deal with that. And it's really cool. It has its own little conclusion to this subplot of his story. With that, Guts then begins to accept the companions that he has when they defeat the trolls. So Charles was actually a really cool, interesting villain, and an apostle that is different from most. Story goes on, and of course we fight the iconic scenes and we see them. Skull Knight comes in a couple times and his voice is really cool. Really, really cool. And I'd say the culmination of all the great mechanics come in near the end. The end of the game is actually the fight at Flora's house. We fight Grumbeld and we fight Zod. And here's where the game ups the ante and makes you feel the stakes and get really excited, but also I think makes it feel like the game doesn't know what else to give you at this point. So of course you fight Grumbeld and you're fighting him for a bit and you're not doing a lot of damage, you do a bit, and then of course the story gives you the Berserk armor and it feels the chains are released. You feel like you can fight, like really fight. The sound and the fights, and the animation. Again, the animation, panels, they're literally panels from the manga. It's just so cool to see. Fighting in the Berserk armor feels so OP. It feels like you're an absolute monster and you shouldn't be allowed to be able to fight this good. And I do wish the game went on further. It would have been cool to have getting the Berserk armor halfway through the game. But again, this is the end part and it's really exciting to do it and run around in this beast-like mode and just fight and press square, which is your normal ability, but you're spinning in the air with this massive sword. It's just ridiculous. It's awesome that this culmination of different closures, not only Guts's, but Shirkei's with Flora, happen near the end of the game. And we fight Grumbeld's Apostle form, which I'll say is the second last boss in the game. And it is the worst boss. I was getting frustrated fighting Slan because I didn't know the mechanics, but once I figured it out, I was like, oh yeah, I get it. With Grumbeld, there is no mechanic. You just need to hit his legs so much, do an animation, get him stun locked on the ground, then hit him in the face continuously, either with animation or other stuff, and then eventually he dies. It is ridiculous how long it takes to fight him. Now, in my version, I did get a glitch, so I kept doing animations and didn't stop, so I had to reload, which I have, which they only let you save once before the final battle, so you have to do 3 bosses in a row. Regardless, when I caught up, it was like still a slog. Like fighting Grumbeld in his Apostle form was it was cool at start, but when you realize how long it takes, you just feel like, I just want to get to the end. And that's something that I hate in video games. Like, you don't want to get to the end because you're having fun and you're enjoying what's happening and you're invested in the now. You're just thinking, I can't wait to get to the credits. And that's something I think kind of sucked. It worsened its gameplay and boss fights very much near the end. The Apostles and the Berserker armor fight were great. It was just, as soon as it started with Grumbeld, it was like, this is a slog. And that's probably one of my biggest criticisms. But when you beat him, you get to fight Zod, which is so cool. You fight Zod in Berserker armor, and man, it's great. And again, the mechanics really, really do reward you when you think of, I need to save this. If you don't use the cannon at any time during a boss fight and you get grappled, you can get out of that animation grapple because you can use the cannon. Just like in the manga when Guts is being captured by an apostle in their hands. In any ways, you know, every time he gets out of it, what does he do? He uses the cannon. It's used tried and true every time he's fought with an apostle. Every single time they're like, how are you gonna get out of this? He pulls out the cannon and it delivers. It delivers just like it did back in Volume 1. It delivers again every single time, especially in the game. And I'm very much happy that they kept that in. You knew that the people who made this were like, we really care. We want to make it feel like this is Guts. This is Berserk. What would you do if you were in these situations? If you had the opportunity to use the cannon, of course you would. You're going to use it because that's what Guts would do. They give you the options of this is what Guts would do. Do you have the luck and the ability to use it at the right time and know what your enemy can and can't do? And that's the thing that makes it really interesting and fun. Now, if you just want to get through the game for the story, you're going to be doing a lot of running. Okay, interesting. All right, well, we keep running. I'll be serious, you're going to be doing a lot of running. Because like I said before, the XP grind is a lot to just upgrade these. If you don't enjoy like fighting a lot of enemies and looking around the entire map, unless you have to for an objective, which there's some are, you have to search the map for different objectives before you can progress, you're going to be here a while. Like running and trying to get through all these enemies feels boring because you're just running. You just want to get to the end of the map. You're running. That's it. Honestly, it's a perfect game to speedrun, I would say, because you could probably go through the game without any upgrades on the easiest difficulty. Honestly, like there were times where I get an upgrade and I think, would I have been fine to not buy this and saved it for something else? I think it'd be interesting to see if anyone could do that, but you're going to be doing a lot of running, and that's something that is kind of a sucker. The zones have music that kind of differentiates, but it's all the same mood. It's all like nighttime kind of vibes. You know, you're being hunted, but it's not a battle. And the battle music is pretty good. I think some of them can get pretty repetitive, but of course, when the big ones hit, Sign hits, all the other ones hit, it's really great. And again, the cutscenes are done very well in terms of showing you this is that scene in the manga because look, it's framed the exact same way and you know exactly what's going to be said in it. Game ends in a very kind of different note. They get away with the help of Flora, away from Flora's house, and they make their way to the beach. But before they get to the beach, of course, Guts collapses after using the Berserker armor. And it's this moment where Casca warms up to him, which I think was something that never happened in the manga, obviously, because it's a continuing plot point. But when he collapses and he's like drifting in and out of consciousness, she sees him and kind of for a moment recognizes who he is, and she smiles and he smiles. And it's something that I thought was, oh, that was a good reward. Like, that's a good reward for the player, because if you finish this, there is no real reward in the manga. You just make it to the beach. But to see Casca smile, and especially at Guts, is like, oh, that's its own reward, because she never did that. She would smile at anything but him. And so that was really cool that that happened. And, you know, it tops it off with great. And overall, it was, you know, near the end in terms of finishing the last couple hours of the game on stream, just trying to get through that fucking Grunbeld, man. Like, I can't... I will probably be playing this again on harder difficulties just to like give them a go. Like a boss rush, a bunch of those stuff. But dude, Grunbeld, fuck me, that guy sucks. He sucks to fight. Every other boss, great, fun, engaging. Even though you have different stages to some of them, Grunbeld is just like, his apostle form is just such a slog. You're like hitting a leg continuously. It's like, give me the animation, just give me the animation. And you know, for that last slog of pretty much that game and finishing it, I did promise chat one thing that I said we'd do essentially when we finish the game. And to celebrate, I said I'd play one of the best songs ever made in a Berserk adaptation to celebrate. And well, I could tell you it was worth it. Now, I did say many, many moons ago that I would play this if we beat the game, so I'm going to do that right now for everyone. Everyone, put it all in the chat. The game is great, guys. It is. If you are interested and have a PC, want to emulate and get the things you need, I would definitely recommend playing it. I think it's a game that every Berserk fan can enjoy, and it's made me think about playing the other two. Maybe we'll see. It was a lot to get through this one and honestly document it, stream it, cut together this video for it, because I do think it deserves a lot more focus. And I will say, if there was a developer out there who remastered this game or took the design philosophies of this game and applied it to a brand new studio and how it works, it would be a great action game. I do think there are a lot of flaws inherently here, but the design of how Guts plays, the design and the method of how the apostles work, it's a great system. It's very similar to Dragon's Dogma. If I had to urge anyone to make a game like this, it should be Capcom. Make a Dragon's Dogma like Berserk game like this, and damn, like it'll sell. It should sell. That's my thoughts. But let me know, have you played it? Have you not? Do you want to keep playing it and stuff? Please let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more like videos like this, I will probably be making a bit more gaming centric stuff, because it was fun to game on stream with people and play a game I'd never played before and kind of experience it with people who hadn't, and experience with people who do know it. More than just a Berserk manga Andy, I am also high quality gamer. That's all from me, guys. Let me know if you would like those, and please, again, put notifications so you don't miss a stream. I'm pretty sure I'll have a video game playing for the first time soon. That's all from me, guys. I think it's a really solid game. It's something that maybe you want to experience as a manga fan, and who knows, hopefully in the future we get something like this again. Thank you for watching to the end. I really appreciate it. Again, subscribe, like, helps me out. Thanks again, guys. My name's Mugen. As always, have a good one.